Well, a few weeks ago, we just went through probably one of the most interesting elections in American history. We've talked about it on this channel. What's going to happen in the future? What are Trump's plans? Why did this happen? For insights on these and more, I have the Maverick investor, again, a frequent guest on our podcast, Jim Rogers. Jim, thank you so much for joining us once again in this virtual table on such short notice.
I am delighted to be here, Javier. Well done. And we did have an election. Mr. Trump won, and Mr. Trump doesn't know what he's going to do, but we will find out. He will find out.
That is for certain. And while we all know that due to the last interviews that Trump is not our first choice, he's now there. And it seems like to me that he wants to remove a lot of regulations on the economy. Do you see an economic boom coming just in general after this election? Do you see many opportunities for investors coming on the horizon just due to the lack of regulations that might happen in his term?
Well, my only problem with that is everybody says that when they are running for office in the U.S., and after they're elected, they say they're going to do it. I mean, very few have done it. Most of them just talk. That's why they're politicians. I hope he does things he says. Some of the things he says, if he is going to cut regulations and various things that impede trade and commerce, it would be great. I've heard it before is my problem.
We've all heard it before. And it's interesting you said that Trump himself doesn't know what he's going to do. But from what I hear from his camp, he's learned a lot from the first term, and at least he's going to be able to get off to a quicker start. But what do you make of Trump's cabinet picks? They seem to be all over the map. We have people like Marco Rubio, who is going to choose as Secretary of State, very establishment person. And then you have people like Tulsi Gabbard, who seems to be anti-war and anti the intelligence agencies. He wants her to head the intelligence agencies. Do you think he's purposely putting people of different ideas in there? Or do you think it's just something that he's putting them together and saying, let's see what happens?
I think it's Mr. Trump doing what Mr. Trump does. His whole approach is lots of approaches, lots of ideas. I have never seen Mr. Trump sit down and give anyone a well thought out, planned purpose. He is all over the block, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I don't see that Mr. Trump has ever sat down and written out 10 or 15 principles that he would pursue. He pursues whatever comes into his brain, which is fine, as long as good things come into his brain.
We would hope so. We would hope so. And so what do you make of the cabinet pick, Mr. Bessent, Scott Bessent? Because I had just read that Scott Bessent actually worked at the Soros Fund with you, and you sort of mentored him in a way. I know it was a long time ago, but do you know him as a person who is very professional in the world of finance, and therefore he might do some good things in the Treasury Department?
I have not seen Scott in 40 years, so you might as well ask me about my first wife, or who knows what you might as well ask me about. I have no idea what Scott is going to do, or I know what I read, and I hope some of it's true. I hope he's in favor of cutting regulations and all the rest of it. But Mr. Trump is also in favor of tariffs on everybody in sight. So I guess Scott is also in favor of tariffs on everybody in sight. Restraints of trade are usually not good. So I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know if they know what they're going to do.
It sounds horrific, actually, especially from a libertarian point of view. Trump or the transition team just announced that he's going to put a 25% tariff on goods from Canada and Mexico. Do you see that as affecting the economy adversely, or do you think that the lifting of regulations will sort of be able to smooth that out?
Well, if you put that kind of tariffs or taxes on anything, it's going to hurt somebody. And it's going to hurt even the people who impose those tariffs and those taxes. So, no, I don't see it as being good. I mean, free trade is pretty clear. The more trade, the better, and the better off everybody is. But There are many people who say, no, 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 those people are evil. We must raise taxes or tariffs on them because they're evil or something. They're not competitive, whatever they say. And I repeat, I think history is pretty clear that the more open trade is, the better the economy is.
Without a doubt. I've heard you say in shows in the past, when I watched you in many interviews, you would say when they said, how about have a consumption tax instead of an income tax? And you said, while I don't like taxes, let's tax consumption. Well, Trump has sort of a proposal, or it's been floated, that he said that we would do away with an income tax and just have tariffs instead. Do you think that might be a positive movement?
Well, it might happen. Doing away with income tax is certainly good. Doing away with as many taxes as you can is good. History is pretty clear. But if you're going to do just taxes on trade, that's not good either. I don't know many taxes that are good. I hope that Mr. Trump can come up with some. We know that income taxes are not great, but I cannot think of any taxes that are great. If Mr. Trump or Scott has some, hooray. I don't know them.
Now, we see that whenever Republican wins, historically, markets go up at least for a time. What's your Trump trade, so to speak, or what trades would you be looking to make, or general investment strategy to leverage maybe the next 4 years of just all around exuberance, perhaps?
Well, I will tell you that the American stock market has been going up for the longest in history since 2009. America has never had such a long period of good times. So history would indicate it's coming to an end. So I guess what I would suggest people do is learn how to sell short, because if it is going to come to an end, the way to make money is to sell short.
And you don't
I'm not
think
suggesting it is going to come to an end, but it's been a very long time of happy days.
and you don't think the Trump administration could postpone that for a little while, or you think it'll happen on his watch?
You say can happen? Of course it could happen. Will it happen? History would indicate it will not and cannot. But it'd be great if they can pull off something that's never been done in history.
That would be great if it were different this time.
I am all for doing something that's never been done, and certainly something that's different this time. Hooray.
Or that contradicts economic law, maybe.
Well, if they've come up with something new and different, hallelujah.
Now, just going very quickly into the geopolitical implications, and I've heard you talk about in the past investing in countries like perhaps North Korea or Russia, or perhaps maybe even Iran, because as we see, Trump had like Hegseth and some of these horrific picks for his cabinet who seem to be neocons and pro war. But if you look at John Bolton, Trump had said that he employed Bolton so that he could scare the other countries basically and say, well, he's with us, we might as well negotiate with him. If this may be his tactic now, do you see Trump opening up to Iran, opening up again to North Korea, countries like Cuba and even Russia? And what are the investment implications of that?
Well, I will say again that open trade, open societies, open visitors, open tourism is good for everybody. It doesn't hurt anyone, or it hurts very few people. So yes, I'm all for it, but I hope Mr. Trump will do it. If he opens North Korea, that would be great. There's no reason that Korea is a divided nation. If he can figure out a way to solve that problem, hallelujah. Asia's going to be better. Korea's going to be better. America's going to be better. I don't know if he even thinks like that, but if he does, it would be good for everybody. And likewise, the rest of the other countries you mentioned. Of course, I would love to see Iran open. Oh, Iran has been historically a terribly successful country. Not recently, obviously, but it's a very big country. It has been an extremely important country in the past. Persia was a very, very important country in world history. It would be wonderful if he can open up that again. He would win the Nobel Prize if he can do some of these things. I hope it's possible.
And it would be a great thing, and there would be a lot of trading and investment opportunities.
Well, Trump thought he was going to win the Nobel Prize for opening Korea, but then the American army said, "No, Mr. Trump, we're not going to leave." If there were peace in Korea, American army's got to leave. Obviously, had no reason to be there. But the American army said to Mr. Trump, "We're not going to leave." And the reason for that is it's the only place we can keep troops on the Chinese border and the Russian border. So they said, "We're not going to leave." So Mr. Trump got angry and said, "Okay." And that's when they made it illegal for Americans to go to North Korea anymore. I've been to North Korea twice. Now I cannot go because Mr. Trump got angry at the American army and said, "Okay, then nobody can go to North Korea." If I can't win the Nobel Prize, nobody can go to North Korea. So it's a bit of a stalemate. The world would be better off if everything was open, but I hope it happens.
Sure. And there's been news from Canada recently. I remember you said on one of our podcasts that you're long dollars because even though the dollar's bad, everything else is worth. The Canadian dollar has been going down precipitously recently due to their loose money policies. Do you see any investment implications of that? Or what do you see happening in the Canadian economy in the next few years?
Well, I would suspect the one thing about Canada has gigantic natural resources. If you look at the economy or even study it slightly, you will see that they have huge natural resources and they could all get rich if they continue to exploit. The problem is, of course, it has been hard to exploit them, but if they do it, oh my gosh, they've got everything: agriculture, timber, metals, oil, everything we need. So it would be wonderful. Is it going to happen? I don't know. I have to ask you.
We will see on that. So, generally, you still believe that the crash is coming and it's going to come relatively recently, relatively in the recent future.
I'm not sure I've ever used the term crash. I certainly know that every few years, every country in the world has economic problems, including the United States. So I know we're going to have economic problems again. It's been the longest in American history without an economic problem. So I know problems are coming. I have no idea when. If you can tell us all when, you'll get rich. We'll get rich. But I know they're coming. I just don't know when. Ice cream.
Oh, you're
Yeah,
having ice cream, huh?
What?
I said you're having ice cream, huh?
I hope so. I hope so.
Now, just finally, what do you make of the new tensions here, or rather the increased tensions between Ukraine and Russia due to Biden in the final days of his term approving these missiles to be sent to the Ukraine? I'm sure you've heard about this.
Of course.
And then Russia sent something resembling an ICBM to Ukraine for the first time in history. Where do you see this going?
Well, wouldn't you, if somebody started sending guns, missiles, bullets to your enemies, or even your friends, you would get worried. And so I'm sure that the Russians and everybody in that part of the world is taking note. And if all of a sudden even your friend has a lot of new guns and new bullets, you're going to be worried. And of course, it's causing animosity, it's causing tension in that part of the world. Are we right? I don't know if we're right or wrong. I just know what's going to happen, and it's going to make things worse, not better.
Let's hope for all of our sake that it calms down. And one last question. We talked about RFK Jr. in our last podcast. Of course, he did not win, but he is the pick for the Department of Health and Human Services. Do you think this is a good thing? And do you think he will be able to stand against Big Pharma? And what would your bets be on that? Because immediately when it was announced that he was going to be Secretary of Health, of course, Pfizer and Moderna both plummeted.
Well, I don't know enough about Mr. Kennedy at all. I do know he has lots of new ideas. New ideas are usually good because it stirs new thinking, causes new thinking, but I just do not know enough about it. I do approve of new ideas. I do approve of somebody coming and stirring up all of our thinking. and making things different. Even if it's bad, it might be bad only for a short time, and then it will turn into good things. But I don't know enough about the man to say.
That's the long trade. Well, Jim, thanks so much for coming on. I just wanted to get your opinion on some of these topics, and I hope you have a great Thanksgiving and Christmas over there.
Hooray, me too. Same to you and same to all of you, everybody who listens to you. Hooray.
Well, thanks.
Happy turkey.
Happy turkey. Much appreciation. It's always great to talk to you.
Great. Let's do it again sometime.
Yes,
Bye-bye.
Bye.